Welcome back to our year in review series. We're touching on receivers today. Steve, what a room, man! I mean, just like they made a lot of changes, adding Jamal Banks and Isaiah Nayer to the program before the year. Whether or not I think Jamal Banks probably lived up to expectations, had a good year. And Isaiah Nayer was kind of up and down, but was your starter. The emergence of Jakori Barney, I think, is the story of the wide receiver room as a freshman, a guy that moving forward you have to feel really excited about what he brings. And I think you're excited about the future of the room with the portal additions we made. But this is a year in
hmm
review episode. We're not talking about the new guys. We're talking about what we saw over the field over the last year. So, Steve, where do we start here? Jamal Banks, I mean, had a good year, could potentially get drafted, just proved to be
hmm
Nebraska's, reliable target. Do we touch on Isaiah Nayer and just kind of the boom or bust type play we got from him this year? Or do we talk about Jakori Barney, who is the kind of the future of that room?
I thought I thought Jamal Banks had kind of a glow up towards the end of the season. I thought he in the bowl game, Pinstripe Bowl against Boston College, he started the game with that beautiful one-handed catch with his left hand. That was awesome. And he was just a really effective. I think every pass that he caught went for a touchdown. And of course, he had a touchdown go through his hands. He didn't complete that one in the second half, but that one might have been tipped and might have been thrown off. But yeah, Banks. He had his ups and downs as well throughout the season, but I think he finished strong, and I think he was a guy that Dylan Raiola really kind of liked throwing to. Nair, again, ups and downs, maybe more downs, especially towards the end of the season once he started playing Big Ten defenses. Tim, I really like you mentioned throughout the season his hand strength with some of those passes. He had some almost completions ripped out of his hands that could I just think he needed to be stronger with the football, and that's something that he's going to have to work on and everything. But he did have some good moments, but ultimately, I think I don't want to say a disappointment, but just he had an okay season, and I think maybe a lot of people would have been wanted him to do more production wise and everything with that. But how can you not mention Jakori Barney and what Jakori is going to mean to this program for the next couple seasons if he hangs around? So yeah, Jakori Barney coming back, he's going to be one of the leaders, one of the featured pieces of the offense. I know Isaiah Hunter from Cal came in. Dane Key, a veteran guy from Kentucky, came in. But again, it's that Jakori Barney, his explosiveness and what he can do in different ways on the offense that I think is really exciting, especially for Dana Holgerson and his offense and the different ways that Jakori Barney is going to get the ball. He did get a ball. He did get the ball in a lot of different ways this season, even with Marcus Satterfield calling the offense. But I'm really excited what a full off season kind of means for somebody like Jakori Barney. And now with Jalen Lloyd hitting the transfer portal, Jakori's that guy. Jakori was the guy before, and he's going to be the guy again. So
He's a
it's
slot.
going
Yeah,
to be,
he's the
yeah,
go-to slot guy, the
exactly.
go-to gadget guy. Like, yeah,
hmm
yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and the thing with Barney is going to be like, yeah, I mean, again, Dana Holgerson knows how to use a guy like him. Just did it over Tank Dell's career at Houston. That was Dana Holgerson. Knew exactly how to use a guy like that. He's already made the comps. I made it earlier, in the season, but Dana himself, made the comp that Barney reminds him a ton of Tank Dell. I think that excites Barney. I think that excites the Nebraska staff because of what Dell did at Houston. Over the course of 2 years, his last 2 years at Houston with Holgerson as his head coach and Dakel Shorts, Nebraska's new wide receivers coach, as his position coach, Tank Dell led the country in receiving across 2 seasons. That's impressive. When you total up the yards across those 2 years, he was number one in the country, and that's because of the development he got under Shorts and the vision that Dana Holgerson had for him in the offense. I've had multiple people reach out, on behalf of Shorts that work with him at Houston, that work with him at West Virginia, that were either recruited by him or played for him. All that truly believe and his influence is being felt across college football right now. Matthew Golden, the leading receiver for Texas right now, he's a guy that was originally recruited by Shorts to Houston, and when Shorts and Holgerson left Houston, he transferred away to Texas. Now leading the Longhorns team, who were in the playoffs. Leading them in receiving the last couple of games. And Samuel Brown, another role player for Miami this year, contributed one of the more explosive offenses this year. Also transferred in from Houston. Another guy that was developed by Dekel Shorts. So again, the Shorts addition to the room, I think, is going to ultimately make this room better for the long term. And again,
Mhm.
we'll have all offseason to kind of dive into what the future of that room looks like with Isaiah Hunter and Dane Key. But we're kind of diving back on the current room. We talked about the top three: Barney, Banks, Lloyd, Barney Banks, and Nair. Lloyd obviously, didn't really have the year people thought. Ended up in the transfer portal. Just wasn't probably used as much as he probably should have been. But how much of that is also on him. Having balance and track and learning the playbook. There's so much that has to be done off the field first. Malachi Coleman, another like in-state guy that was touted and had some early flashes as a freshman. Didn't do redshirted, didn't play at all this year, and ended up in the transfer portal. Is off to Minnesota. And then Carter Nelson, another a true freshman, that
Mhm.
was making that transition from 8-man football to 11-man football. Initially started as a tight end, moved to the receiver room. Probably where I think he sticks for the foreseeable
I hope
future
so.
at receiver. Um,
Yeah.
Kind of how do you gauge, I guess, that next group of receivers that, it was up and down play. We can question the usage how much we want to, because I think that's going to improve next year when you have a DeKel Shorts leading the room. Where do you sit kind of, and how do you make, like, how do you kind of sit with the room that as is?
Yeah, so the guys that we haven't mentioned yet, and let's go through them, Tim. So you got Janiron Bonner, who's set to return, Quinn Clark, Carter Nelson, Keelan Smith, IGC. Are we going to throw in Isaiah Garcia
I think
Castaneda,
he's done. I
especially
think he's
with
out of
that?
eligibility. I think he's
Okay.
done.
Even with the new ruling with the JUCO
I
guys?
think, yeah, just because it's within the 5 year limit, and I think he's a
Okay.
sixth or seventh year guy. I
All
think
right.
he's done.
Well, that makes my life a lot easier. Cross him out. Demetrius Bell, didn't play at all. He had that knee injury in the spring game. Staff was very high on him during spring ball when he was healthy. Isaiah Mosey, Cortez Mills, couple true freshmen going to be true freshmen during spring ball. Then might as well throw Heinrich Harburg. We'll see what happens with Alex Bullock, who walked on senior day, but he's listed as a junior right now. Sometimes they walk and they come back. Sometimes they don't walk and leave. It's whatever. But there's just not a lot of look. There's a lot of potential in those names that I just rattle off, but there's not a lot of production, and that's the kind of thing that DeKel Shorts is going to have to kind of figure out here, because there are a lot of exciting names in here. Like Quinn Clark, I would really like to see what Quinn Clark looks like body wise next year. How much weight does he gain? Because boy, at 6'5", he looks like he's 6'6", 6'7".
Yeah,
There's just huge. A wingspan is off the charts with that kid. Catch radius has got to be through the roof. Carter Nelson, obviously, I hope he sticks at receiver. I don't want to see him as a traditional tight end. Demetrius Bell has always kind of intrigued me just because of what his teammates and coaches have said during last year's spring
he was the
ball.
guy getting
As
like the Jakori Barney love in
yeah,
spring. Like he was,
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah. That's why the injury in spring ball in the spring game just was so devastating, because all of that work just like gone in the flick of a
Mhm.
in the flick of a finger. So Keelan Smith, obviously, we know what he did in Missouri his senior year, one of the best players in this state. Cortez Mills, we all know that name. We know what he can do. Exciting young player. Heinrich Harburg's gonna be catching passes next year, and then we'll see with Alex Bullock. But Tim, what do you see? There's a lot of interesting names. There's a lot of like maybe high ceiling guys, but they're just so young and just untested right now. We just don't totally know what they have. So that's why I think it was so huge to get somebody like Isaiah Hunter out of Cal and Dane Key out of Kentucky.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, Jakel Schwartz has already proven himself as a recruiter in landing
Yeah,
those two out of the portal, and what he's done doing early on in the 2026 class, and what he's done across his career. Now it's time to earn it as a developer, and he's done it at previous stops, but at Nebraska now you kind of have to prove yourself um, as this guy that, can turn this room of unproven talent into proven talent.
yeah.
Or at least get them ready, because yeah, like I like the mix of bodies and names. I'll say
Me
that much,
too. Yeah,
because you have a Dane Key who's essentially the Jamal Banks replacement with a little more upside, a guy that's a super reliable pass catcher, not a burner by any means, but can run
no,
every route in the route tree. Is an excellent route runner, can beat press, can create separation. You have an Isaiah Hunter who, if you wanted to make a comp, is like a more reliable Isaiah Nair, a big body that can stretch the field deep, beats guys with the combination of height, weight, and speed, or strength and speed. And then you have, Jakori Barney, shifty, small on the inside that can kind of do a couple of different things, get him the ball in different ways. Cortez kind of fits that. Isaiah Mosey kind of fits that. Demetrius Bell. kind of fits that role as well. So you have that group there. You have Quinn Clark that kind of slots into that big body behind
Yep. Hmm.
um, Dane Key and could
And
even
now
play
he
some
gets to
outside
learn
receiver
from a
himself.
veteran like Dane Key.
For
That's
sure.
what I'm excited about, and that's why I think what was such a draw with somebody like Dane Key is because Dane Key was a starter as a true freshman in Kentucky in the SEC. He's
Right.
been a starter past 3 seasons. He's going to come here and be asked to be that veteran leader of the group, just like Jamal Banks, did an excellent job of being that kind of that teacher, that leader, dude. So I'm really excited for Quinn Clark and what he can eventually turn into when he gets to learn from somebody like Dane Key.
For sure. And then Carter Nelson, like what is, like we're
Yeah.
still
What
figuring
is
out
he?
what he is as he's developing from the 8-man ball. We got him in limited reps this year. Would have probably liked to see more of him, but kind of understand the logjam at receiver this year and kind of where that room was at in terms of just getting reliable targets out there. But he's got a good relationship with Dylan Raiola. That's a guy that is one of the better athletes on the team, just pound for pound. You got to
Mm-hmm.
find a way to get him involved. So, again, a guy that I don't really know where he fits in necessarily in terms of is he more of that field
Yeah.
stretching guy. He's a reliable target. He can be. He's a big body. Tough to bring down. We even saw that in practice. Just a tough cover at that size, just with his natural ability. So, how much more can they get out of him? How far can he develop? It's a critical offseason, I think, for a bunch of those second year receiver or guys that are entering their second year, like Quinn Clark, like Carter Nelson, Keelan Smith, so on and so forth. I think you can throw Demetrius Bell in there too. Critical
Yes.
offseason for those guys to kind of earn some playing time and try and slot in the two deep behind what I'm expecting to be the starters of Isaiah Hunter, Dane Key, and Jakori Barney. I think those are the top three. Jaren Bonner is a guy that we haven't
He's
really discussed,
interesting.
but I
Mm-hmm.
think he fits into that room as we're talking about unproven talent. I think he's proven. I think we know what he is, and I think he's
They
that.
know what he is. They know that
Yeah,
he can line up wide if they want. He can motion in. He can be Heinrich Harburg. He can lay it. He can put his shoulder into an edge, help out in the run game as a blocker. Not a lot of people are really excited about Janiron Bonner, but I think he's a good football player, honestly, and I think he can do some things that a lot of other receivers in that room can't do. And I just think his size, his toughness, he can just be very versatile. And I think he should be more appreciated than he is, honestly.
for sure. I think the cool thing with the staff or this program, the staff right now is the guys that are willing to play roles and the staff selling them on those roles. And right now, I
Hmm.
see Jenner and Bonner. A few of these guys in this room are going to have to get sold or will get sold on essentially playing a role, like not exactly being an every down type receiver.
Hmm.
With Bonner, we kind of saw him get used a lot more inside the 20-yard line, where it's like, okay, make a
Oh
guy
yeah.
miss, break some tackles, and go score. We saw him on those yo-yo motions and things like that. So I think we're going to see more
Hmm.
of that type of stuff. Again, with Nebraska wanting to be as versatile as they are offensively, Bonner's a guy that can kind of line up in a couple different spots. Nelson hypothetically is another one that could. They talked about him being a potential power slot. Yeah, it's just a big offseason, I think, for those guys to figure out where they slot into the room and avoid getting jumped by Cortez Mills and Isaiah Mosey. I think Cortez and Isaiah are coming in with the idea
They're
that,
coming
you
in
know,
ready to go.
they're coming
I
in ready to
think, Tim.
play. And
Yeah.
and we talked about Jakori Barney's confidence all year. Both
Hmm.
Mosey and
Oh
Mills, they
yeah.
have that same level of confidence. They both produce at a high level against some top high school competition. And Mosey's got his dad on staff. Mills has Jakori Barney, his friend on staff. Philip Simpson, his former high school head coach on staff. These guys are coming in ready to play, and they're going to come in and try and earn some snaps and eat into the snap counts of Carter Nelson and Quinn Clark and so on and so forth. So yeah, it's a big offseason.
Yeah, just to touch on Carter Nelson, it's got to be such a huge leap to go from 8-man football in rural Nebraska to Big Ten, and that's nothing against 8-man football. I played 8-man football. I'm from 8-man country. I respect it and everything, but there's just got to be such a massive jump, right, Tim? And
Yeah,
especially from
I
for
mean it's
for
a
somebody like Carter Nelson, who is everybody like saw the tight end underneath his rival's card and like, oh man, tight end is gonna be awesome, 6'5", 230 pounds. It's just not the same, man. He didn't grow up blocking. He it's a new thing to him.
yeah
I attended his
yeah
signing ceremony in Ainsworth. I talked to him about blocking, and he was straight up and very honest with me. He said, "Hey, I just haven't done it right now," and that's totally understandable because for his team, Ainsworth, for them to be successful, the ball needed to be in Carter Nelson's hands, not blocking a defensive lineman. So it's just a development thing right now with Carter Nelson. I really I know everybody wants things to happen right away, but sometimes it doesn't work out like that, and that's totally fine. I believe that Carter Nelson is a talented player, and he's gonna continue getting better, but it's just some things take time, and that's totally fine.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a jump for anyone moving from high school to to Power Four football specifically. It's a
Yep.
jump for even the guys playing in the toughest leagues. So making the jump from 8 man to 11 man in the Big Ten is really, really tough. So yeah, it's a big offseason for those guys. DeKel Shores has his work cut out for him in terms of developing these guys. I'm really excited to see this room in the spring and kind of how they
Hmm.
work together, who's lining up where, how it all fits together. But yeah, Steve, that'll probably do it for us here with the receiver year in review. An interesting room and a room that I think is only going to
Hmm.
keep getting better. And you have to be excited about the future of the room. But any final thoughts before we get out of here?
No, just Isaiah Hunter, Dane Key, massive, massive additions. Jakori Barney Jr. coming back again. A lot of cool names underneath those guys. A lot of close your eyes and imagine what those guys can do, and it looks pretty good. But right now, they're just young, they're inexperienced, and they need game reps. And until that happens, we just don't really know what that room truly has right now behind Isaiah Hunter and Dane Key and Jakori Barney. So.
For sure. Yeah. Couldn't have said it better myself. But yeah, that'll do it for us. We'll be back with a tight end slash O line episode here soon and then flip to the defense here in the next couple of days. So stay tuned for all of that.